Every year when back to school time rolls around, all the major big box retailers love to tell you about their brand new shiny laptop deals. But as with most deals in life, they're not real. Now on average, a US household spends somewhere between $800 to $900 per year on school supplies. Now that's obviously more than just a laptop, right? You're thinking about books, you're thinking about bags, all that kind of stuff. But for today's purposes, I'm going to purchase a back to school laptop from Walmart, Best Buy, Amazon, as well as Target to see which store is worth it and which of these laptops are actually any good. Let's start out with Walmart. Now, I'm gonna go into each store with a roughly $600 to $700 budget, but I'm also going to rely on the store's recommendation and their so-called sales to drive the way. So the very first thing I see here is top of the class gadgets. So let's shop some tech, shall we? So all kind of options here. The first thing I see is a MacBook Air. So this is a 2020 M1 MacBook Air that I will actually say is a very good deal. So when I purchased mine a few months ago, it was about $700. Now they're actually on sale for $650. All right, let's lock it in. For Walmart, we're gonna go with an M1 MacBook Air. Next up, let's try Best Buy. Now, Best Buy should be a great place to get a back to school laptop. All right, back to school essentials. An XPS 14 for $1,800? What? Boy, that's a terrible first recommendation. I will be not purchasing that one for back to school unless you're rich. You know what? Best Buy, I will give you this. You have a lot of options. So I think I'm gonna go with this Lenovo Ideapad. At $480, it is supposedly $320 off its normal price, which I think this actually is a fairly decent deal. It's got a slightly older Ryzen 7 processor, but importantly, it does have 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD. This seems like a pretty reasonable choice for going back to school. Next, let's go to Target.com. Well, I see electronics, okay. Computers and office, yep. Laptops and tablets, yep. Okay, I'm still clicking. I will tell you, there's nothing good laptop-wise on Target. And they're listing me tablets in the actual spot where a laptop should be. Like they're pretending that this is like a reasonable choice. $350 for the iPad, the 10th gen. Oh God, I'm gonna have to buy an iPad. Okay, all right. And how much do I have to pay for the keyboard with this? The keyboard's expensive, right? I know Ken did a video on this.
And it costs as much as $350 for the 13-inch model.
It's a $350 iPad with a $250 keyboard. No! No! Don't make me do it. So I guess I'm buying the iPad and the keyboard for the same price as a good laptop. Last but certainly not least, let's take a look at what Amazon has got for us. Surely Amazon will save the day, right? Okay, yeah. Best laptops for students. Hit me up. A VivoBook Go. So for $260, this is a HD screen, thankfully, a Ryzen 3 7320U, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 128 gig SSD. We're gonna put that in the maybe category. That actually feels totally reasonable. Wait, what about a gaming laptop? So this is the ASUS TUF A15. Now, a gaming laptop is actually a really interesting choice for back to school because while obviously gaming laptops are going to be great for gaming, they are oftentimes really useful when it comes to doing heavier tasks. So if in your schooling, you need to do non-gaming tasks like, I don't know, edit video, do some 3D rendering, maybe even some light AI tasks, while 8 gigs of RAM is a little bit limiting, having that RTX 3050 on board actually is low-key pretty important. I actually think this is my move. Now, mind you, it is the most expensive laptop here, but it's only just a little bit more than the MacBook. Let's do it. All right, my friends, with that, I'm going to place 4 orders for back to school laptops to see, is it actually worth it to trust the fine establishments known as Best Buy and Target and Walmart and
the one you just bought from.
And Amazon. Thank you, I appreciate it. There we go, that's the one. Welcome back. We have a wide selection of laptops that we have purchased from our various retailers. So to determine which one is best, we have a patented criteria of important metrics that we're going to carefully measure. Carefully measure, scientifically, with accuracy, and journalistic scruples. That's a word. I saw it in the dictionary. So, just as a reminder, our laptops are the M1 MacBook Air from Walmart. We have the Lenovo Ideapad 1 from Best Buy. We have the TUF Gaming A15 from Amazon. And we have the iPad 10th Gen and keyboard from Target. So we're gonna begin by unplugging each and every one of these devices. Battery life is going to be part of the way that we're going to determine how practical these are for back to school, as they were recommended to us for back to school use. And let's actually start out with the MacBook Air. So essentially what you've got here for $650 is a laptop that previously was about $1,000 when it was new. Now it's easy, I think, to kind of write this off that it's a 3, almost 4-year-old laptop. But I will tell you that that M1 inside is still very, very much usable in 2024. And among all the devices we have on the table, this is still one of the more powerful. Obviously, something like the gaming laptop has more like graphics performance, but don't count out something like the M1. All right, let's start out by doing a typing test on each laptop, starting with the MacBook. Okay, 82 words per minute, 95% accuracy. Now, the advantage that the MacBook has over all of the other devices here is that it is a solid aluminum chassis, which means that there's no keyboard flex, and of course the trackpad is phenomenal. I will say, having briefly used all of these, the trackpad on the MacBook, hands down the best. But of course you're gonna do more than just type on your device. Let's watch a YouTube video and see how well the screen and the speakers hold up. Let's watch PSP, shall we?
Sony dominated the generation with the PS2, so when they set their sights in the portable market, the expectations were enormous.
This is quite a nice display, I will tell you. It might not be 120 hertz like something like the TUF, but it's a very high quality panel, and the speakers are also really pretty good. So you do have front-firing speakers, which is not something you typically get at this kind of price point. I mean, obviously there's going to be some advantages to this previously being a $1,000 laptop. Some of that sort of goodness has sort of trickled down. Now, one of the key things I want to try is how laptopable these devices are, because, well, again, something like a MacBook is really designed to be used on your lap. I'll tell you, that iPad is not. All of this stuff so far is like absolute like MacBook. Like this is like exactly what this device is designed for. You know, it's like lighter tasks, typing, keyboard, trackpad, screen, like all of the basic fundamentals of a laptop, this MacBook absolutely nails. And it's also going to go for something like portability. So I am a small laptop boy. And so one of the things that I appreciate about a device like this, very small and thin and portable, it slots in absolutely no problem. It's not super heavy. I mean, when you're talking about practicality, when you're talking about sort of everyday lighter tasks, I mean, the MacBook is clearly the best laptop here for these kind of things, isn't it? Now let's take a look at our Lenovo Ideapad 1. Now, I will say, this is the cheapest laptop here, so it's worth looking at it through that lens. This cost, was it $470, $480, something like that?
It was $480.
$480, right? So screen is not amazing. It is also just 1080p, which is fine. Some other stuff here, it does have a good port selection. So unlike the MacBook, which only has a couple of USB-C, we've got ourselves USB-A, USB-C, HDMI. You've also got a full-size card reader, another USB-A. Like, port selection is pretty solid here. All right, let's give this a try, shall we? Even though it's a little flexy, Lenovo know how to make a keyboard, man. 84 words per minute, importantly 100% accuracy on my first go. Yeah.
Sony dominated the generation.
Oh, no, thank you.
In the portable market, the expectations were enormous.
This sounds more like a phone speaker than a set of laptop speakers. That's bad. Yes, the build quality feels a little bit on the cheapy side. I wish it wasn't quite so flexible. Considering the fact that we've got 16 gigs of RAM, we've got a still relatively modern Ryzen processor, the keyboard's phenomenal, the trackpad's pretty good. The biggest downsides here are for media consumption. The screen is just okay, and the speakers are actively bad. Now, as a larger laptop, I don't know if this is gonna fit in my bag. Now, I will say it's light enough that it's fine, and it does. Nice, oh, does it? Ooh, yeah, it does barely fit. Just barely. So I will say that even though the downsides of it being plastic are certainly there, the upside is it's actually really lightweight. So I would say it's still pretty practical for you to carry around with you every day. So, all right, you know what? feeling pretty good about the Lenovo. Next up, let's take a look at Target's wonderful choice of a 10th gen iPad. Now, I will give them a little bit of credit here. While most people should not really buy an iPad for school, there are some merits on paper. Battery life is going to be quite decent. Portability is obviously great. It's an 11-inch form factor. But, boy, there are some challenges here. So, there's one port, which is a USB-C. So there's no Thunderbolt, there's no headphone jack, there's no SD card, no USB-A. And when it comes to a keyboard, obviously, the keyboard doesn't come with the iPad. So this is a $350 iPad with the $250 keyboard. Now, to be fair, if I was gonna go outside of Target and their default recommendations, there are third-party keyboards you can purchase. I know Logitech make a few that still will plug directly in and everything. They're gonna be cheaper. They're gonna be like in the $100, $150 range. So it's still expensive, but like significantly better than this. Let's give this a try, shall we? Oh, I don't like that. Yeah, it's really small. Oh, it also doesn't sound good. You can tell it's like built into a cover and there's nothing like behind it. Oh boy, this is gonna be slow. 64 words per minute, yeah. I'm a lot slower. Probably the strongest suit of the iPad is going to be media consumption. Because if that's like your number one thing that you do on your device, the screen is quite nice. So I don't know the resolution off the top of my head, but it's pretty high. It also gets fairly bright, and this does have nice stereo speakers.
This, my friends, is the story of every PSP ever made. Sony first ventured into the handheld.
Okay, so you know that thing I was saying about how you care about media consumption, the iPad's fine? Yeah, if you ever want to use this as a laptop, it's real bad. So I'm of course using the Smart Keyboard Folio, so it does have some adjustment, not as much as I'd like, but the problem is it's really uneven. So this is fine when you're on like a normal surface, but if I'm trying to put that on my knees, right? When I try to lean it back, first of all, it's gonna fall really quickly because I want it to be like here, and that's obviously not gonna stay. So like I'm gonna have to like lean and put it like on the very edge of my knees. It is, I will immediately say, really uncomfortable. That's probably the number one selling point of an iPad. It is so portable that you can pretty much take it with you anywhere. And especially if you don't need the keyboard, if you have the pencil or something, you can just take the iPad by itself, toss the pencil on, walk around, throw it in any kind of bag. That is a major advantage. But for most people, the typing experience on anything other than a nice flat level surface makes it so hard to live with. Last but not least, we have the Amazon Special, the TUF A15 gaming laptop. However, at the $680 price tag, there are a couple of things we're missing. The big downside here is that we only have 8 gigabytes of RAM. You're almost certainly gonna need to spend a few extra dollars to put in another 8 gigs of RAM. Like I just can't, in good conscience, recommend to use a 8 gigabyte gaming laptop in 2024. Like that's not it. So plastic is first impression. Now it does have this finish that makes it feel a little less cheapy, although it's definitely soaking up my fingerprints pretty quickly. Now you do have RGB on the keyboard, so it looks pretty decent. The screen is actually very similar to something like the Lenovo, 15.6 inch, 1080p, color and everything's not great. The main advantage here is this is a full 144 hertz display. So it will be better for gaming, but I'll say for like regular tasks, immediately you can just look at it and go, oh, it looked kind of not great. Port selection is pretty solid. So we got a USB-A on one side. We also have 2 more USB-A, USB-C, HDMI, and a full-size Ethernet, which is nice. One of the downsides though is the power adapter. So all these other devices charge either via USB-C or have a small power adapter. This is a 180 watt brick. And you're gonna wanna carry this around with you all day, which means that not only is this a much heavier, much more bulky device, but you also have to consider that you're gonna have a bunch of extra weight when it comes to the charger in your bag. Practicality is gonna take a massive hit, but if the performance is worth it, that's fine. All right, let's give this a try. Keyboard's actually not bad. 89 words per minute, 98% accuracy. Yeah, that keyboard actually is better than I was afraid. The trackpad though is definitely on the small side. It's honestly basically the same size as the iPad, which is not great. But the trackpad itself is also, like, it's fine. It's totally fine, nothing special.
This, my friends, is the story of every PSP ever made. Sony first ventured
So,
into handheld.
speakers are okay, a little bit better than the Lenovo, but still not as good as either of the Apple devices. What I'm noticing is the speakers kind of fire out the sides. which is not great because first of all, there's not a lot of separation, but also just it sounds muffled. So when it comes to using this as a laptop, certainly big, certainly a little bit on the bulky kind of side, but where this is not gonna feel solid is in your bag. I mean, this is a big, chunky laptop, and I don't think it's gonna fit. Oh, barely, maybe. If I stretch the, if I stretch the zipper, I think it, there we go. It fits. If you're gonna put downsides on a gaming laptop like this, portability is absolutely one. Because keep in mind that that's just the laptop. I also have to carry around my giant 180 watt power adapter. No self-respecting school laptop is not gonna spend a whole bunch of time in video calls. So I've got all 4 of our devices here set up on the table in a single Google Meet. We're gonna see exactly how well they look and how well they sound, not just by recording locally, but actually what it looks like on the other end of a Google Meet call. This is gonna be fun. First of all, we have ourselves the MacBook Air. Now, MacBooks, as you will probably not be surprised to find, are pretty good for this kind of thing. So it's got a 1080p display, the M1 processor does a lot of the actual processing on chip to make sure the video looks all right, and theoretically, the audio should also be pretty decent, keeping in mind that all of what you're seeing right now is being compressed through Google Meet, so all the audio enhancements and video compression and blah, blah, this is exactly what someone would see on the other end of your video call. Next up, we have the Lenovo. It's a little contrasty, I'll say, but I assume that once we've actually processed this video through Google Meet, on the other side, it's gonna look fine. My bigger question is, what does the audio sound like on the Lenovo? And now we're on the 10th gen iPad. So this has the ultra-wide camera, which in the browser just looks ultra-wide, but if I was using the actual Google Meet app, it would be panning and sort of scanning around to make sure that I was always centered up in the frame. Last but not least, we have the TUF. So again, like the Lenovo, this doesn't look great on camera, but I think Google Meet's doing a little bit of processing, and this does advertise two-way AI noise cancellation, so you can be the judge of if this sounds wonderful or like poop. Next up, let's try some gaming, shall we? And of course, the best gaming PC here is the MacBook. So let's start out with Resident Evil Village, a game that theoretically would run on all of these, except the iPad because it's too old. But anyway, this is a game I've actually played a fair little bit on the base MacBook Air. It's really not bad. One of the things that Apple low-key does really well when it comes to gaming is they use their Metal FX upscaling, which is very similar to something like DLSS, which means that, again, for a thin and light $650 laptop, the gaming experience can be good, except for when you want to play any game that's not Death Stranding, or Resident Evil, or Assassin's Creed, or Baldur's Gate, or Minecraft. I think I just named 90% of the games on Mac. Now we are playing with the Lenovo, and my baby looks slightly more pixely. I'm very surprised to say that this looks and runs worse than the MacBook. It's honestly not great, but this is still a much more usable laptop because of course it's running Windows, which means that even though I actually think the MacBook may be slightly more powerful when it comes to the graphics, this is gonna have so many more games to choose from that's probably not that much of a competition. Okay, so some pros and cons of gaming with the TUF. A pro would certainly be the performance. We're actually now hitting pretty close to 110, 120 FPS, running at 1080p. Obviously this is a very not demanding scene, but I mean it is dramatically smoother than the MacBook or the Lenovo. However, I'm running into different issues. Mostly, this screen is really dark. Especially for a game like this, it does not look good. I mean, yes, if I'm right on top of it, it's all right, but the viewing angles are not good at all here. Even though Resident Evil does work on iPad, it needs an M1 processor, which this does not have, which means that we're gonna have to play Genshin. Where's the impact? Yes, let's get going. Great idea. Okay, so, ooh, wow, that frame rate is a frame rate. So touch controls, not great, I will say. I could, of course, pair a controller, but, I mean, this is fine. I'd say kind of jittery, though. It's not super smooth. Unless your gaming tastes are incredibly narrowly limited to stuff that lands on the App Store. This is not it. It's not it. And so, my friends, it is time to determine which of these laptops truly is best. Now, at the risk of a little bit of a cop-out answer, I will say that there is an argument for any of these devices. You know, if you really care about portability, the iPad obviously has an advantage. The performance of the TUF, the MacBook is more premium, the Lenovo is the cheapest, but my goal here is to determine a winner using these 3 criteria. So we're gonna start out by talking about value. Now, this one's a little bit more complicated than it should be. Now, starting with the MacBook, MacBook $650, very strong value proposition. You're getting a quite premium build. You're getting a lot of, I would say, bang for your buck. Now, yes, it's easy to complain, only 8 gigs of RAM, but performance, screen, like there's not really a whole lot of things wrong with the MacBook from a value perspective. By far the worst when it comes to value is the iPad. If the iPad had a keyboard that was not ludicrously expensive, I think it would do pretty well, because I think the iPad by itself for $350 is not bad. But another $250 for the keyboard? Hell no, brother. The Lenovo does well on value, because the Lenovo, for less than $500, even though the build quality isn't amazing, you're getting solid specs, including 16 gigs of RAM, which I will argue is quite important for the future. And the TUF is decent. The problem is that when you go into super budget gaming laptops, there are major corners to be cut. The screen is just not good. It's just very dim. That's the biggest problem. And having only 8 gigs of RAM means that you pretty much have to upgrade this. So if I'm gonna rank them top to bottom, bottom to top, iPad clearly on the bottom, not even a question. I will actually put the TUF as number 3. And number 2, I'm actually gonna give to the MacBook, meaning that the Lenovo wins value. Even though the MacBook feels nicer, you're saving $180 by going with this Lenovo, which also has 16 gigs of RAM, which makes me feel a lot better about the future. So value-wise, feel pretty good about this one. Next, we have performance. Now, the way I'm gonna categorize this is how well it performs as a back-to-school laptop. Now, when it comes to the iPad, there's a lot of things that the iPad cannot do besides very, very basic kind of tasks. Now, the Lenovo does pretty well on performance. So it does have that Ryzen 7, 16 gigs of RAM. The downsides, though, is that the webcam is not good. The audio is atrocious. So as a laptop that you're gonna be spending time with like video calls and stuff, while it might be fine for you, people on the other end of the call will not appreciate your sounds bad. The TUF has a lot of performance, so it's gonna score well here. But much like the Lenovo, the webcam and the audio is only so-so. You're also dealing with a device that's gonna be a lot louder. The MacBook, I think, is actually a pretty good sweet spot here. As a laptop that is actually usable on a regular basis and something that actually has the performance and the overall package, I have to give the MacBook the win on performance. But this one's actually not even particularly close. Second place, though, is the TUF. I think the TUF delivers a lot of performance. It's probably one of its strongest suits. Lenovo is decent, and iPad definitely last place here. It's almost like there's a little bit of a trend on the bottom of the chart here so far. Which leads us to practicality. So before I decide on this, I actually want to check. So we've been running, how long has the timer been running since we unplugged all these devices?
Literally like 2 minutes before 3 hours.
So 2 hours and 58 minutes ago, we unplugged them all. Now, please keep in mind, this is not a scientific test, but we've generally speaking done all the same things on these devices. So they all spent roughly the same amount of time gaming. They were all on a video call for like 30 minutes or so. We've obviously been web browsing, the screens have all been on. They've all been on for about 3 hours. So let's see how much battery life we've got, because when you're talking practicality, battery, pretty important. All right, let's start with the iPad. The iPad is at 74%. The MacBook is at 60. The Lenovo is at 36. And the TUF is at 32. So, while clearly not a scientific comparison, both the iPad and the MacBook score really well on practicality. The TUF does not score well on practicality. It's big, it's heavy, you need that huge power adapter. It also has, surprise, surprise, the worst battery life here. Yeah, you can probably try to come close to getting all-day battery life on the Lenovo, but you can 100% get all-day battery life on the MacBook, and the iPad is even better than that. TUF, very clearly on the bottom here, not even a competition. I'm putting the iPad in third. The iPad, even though it's its strongest suit, the problem with the iPad OS is still not all that practical as your only system. And the fact that you have to spend that much money on a keyboard that is nowhere near as good as having an actual real keyboard, third place. Which puts the Lenovo in second. And the MacBook, I know how to spell, the BA in first place. So if I'm doing my math right, last place goes to the iPad, third place goes to the TUF, second place Lenovo, first place MacBook Air. You know what? I feel good about that. Yes, the Lenovo is a perfectly reasonable, it's a good second choice. But for me, this MacBook at 650 bucks, not only is the best laptop here, it's also the best MacBook, period. When you consider that a newer MacBook, if you want to get like an M2 or an M3, it's gonna cost you, what, $1,000, $1,100 at least, before you add any upgrades or anything like that. Like, this laptop right here, thumbs up. Good job, Walmart. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully you found it a little bit insightful when it comes to learning a little bit more about the back-to-school laptops, and importantly, how stores love to tell you they got a brand new deal, when in fact, they're charging you full price, and in fact, there's nothing unique or special about it at all.